It's Thursday. It's Ren and Friends premiere day for me, and I wasn't sure I was going to make it. As you can tell from my voice right now, I've got a doozy of a cold. Yeah, I said doozy. I was chatting with some of you over in my Ren and Friends chat over on my free Patreon account, and I wasn't sure if I was going to make it, but I made it. I rallied. I'm going to have to be pretty sick to not hang out with y'all on Thursday, so if you can put up with this really honking voice right now, then I say we go for it. All right, so I'm gonna do it. Let's jump right in. I want to listen to the Englishman in New York as my next song by The Big Push. This was recommended a whole bunch by one of you renegades. I can't remember who you are. If you are the one who kept recommending this a lot a few weeks ago, put your name in the comments here. I'd love to connect and see who you are. I can't find it in the comments, but anyway, I'm excited to listen to this. I'm gonna go all the way through, and then I'm going to go back and break down all the fun stuff I'm hearing. We're just going to do it the way we always do it. So sit back, relax, let's enjoy Ren and The Big Push singing Sting's cover of The Englishman in New York.
Don't take coffee, I'll take tea, my dear.
Tea, my dear.
I'd like my toast done up one side.
On one side.
You could dip it in my accent when I talk. I'm an Englishman in New York. See me walking down Fifth Avenue. Walking cave at my side. Take it with me everywhere that I walk. I'm an Englishman in New York. Whoa, I'm an alien. I'm a legal alien. I'm an Englishman in New York. Whoa, I'm an alien. I'm a legal alien. I'm an Englishman in New York. Manners maketh man, some might say.
Some might say.
He's a hero of the day.
Hero of the day.
Taste of man, suffer ignorance and smile. Be yourself, no matter what they say. Takes more than combat gear to make a man.
Make a man.
Takes more than a license to a gun.
License to a gun.
Befriend your enemies, confront them when you can. A gentleman must walk but never run. Whoa, I'm an alien. I'm a legal alien. I'm an Englishman in New York. Whoa, I'm an alien. I'm a legal alien. I'm an Englishman in New York. yourself, no matter what they say. Be yourself, no matter what they say. Be yourself, no matter what they say. Be yourself, no matter what they say. Whoa, I'm an alien.
I'm a legal alien. I'm an Englishman in New York. Whoa, I'm an alien. I'm a legal alien. I'm an Englishman in New York.
Wow, that was so good. That was so tight. Oh, did you hear it? Like, first thing that jumped in my mind with that was how dry the vocals were. There was not any, I think, reverb on those vocals at all. It was just pure voice. It was just pure voice. As you know, this is like my big thing. Like, I love to just hear the vocal. Let me hear the moment that this sound was captured in as much authenticity and honesty as I can so that we can be moved by the humanity in it or whatever, you know? Like, that was amazing. That was so pure. I could just hear all of their voices so perfectly panned and isolated. What a beautiful blend of harmony. Wasn't that great? Oh, this was beautiful. This was really, really a fun, intimate little presentation of the song. Such a creative cover. This is a creative cover, and I talk about creative covers like every single day in my studio. They took Sting's original song and they adapted it and made it their own, created harmonies, changed things up, had different things happening in the instrumentation from section to section. Brilliant. Any of you who are looking to be musicians or starting off on a journey, if you're looking to build up a following for yourself, one of the best ways to do that is to take great songs and then do something creative on top of them that represents who you are as a musician, or if you're playing with other people as an ensemble that represents you. And then you do a few of those, then you mix in some of your own originals, and you bring people along for the journey in that way. It's a brilliant way to build a following and build a fan base. And there's really great merit in using creative covers like this. Like, Ren is a master of that. If you notice, he's done this on his channel many, many times over. But he doesn't just do an okay cover. He does a brilliant cover. And not only brilliant in creativity, but very tight musically. That's one of the biggest reasons that he's blown up. He's just really good at adapting and reshaping other people's music into his Reniverse and making it have something new and something interesting. Now, there are some times in your studies where you are going to want to do what I call a replica cover, where you literally just try to do exactly what the artist did for sake of study, to try to figure out the tools of the trade. How does someone use their voice like that? How does someone play guitar like that? How do they get those sounds? How do they do those things? Because sometimes you're just looking to collect coordination so that you can, as a vocal artist, use those vocal paintbrushes for yourself when it comes up in your own artistry and art making. So a lot of the work I do with people, especially with artists like super high-level artists, when I'm working with them on singing and voice lessons, it's not like I'm teaching them how to sing. It's not that. It's more so we're exploring vocal paintbrushes and sounds and like, hey, have you considered trying that way of singing over here on something like that? Or have you considered if you temper that sound with this sound, it creates this emotional thing that then you could use in a song like that? You know, that kind of thing. So, man, super fun. All right, we're going to go back, and I just want to break down some of the cool things that I heard in that performance. There's lots of little nuancey things that were super interesting. All right, so right here, Romain is doing the skank. He's doing that offbeat accent, which is a signature of ska and reggae. You heard me talk about that in Bongo Bong. That's one of those super reggae ingredients that you put in your music. Also, what's interesting here, Romain is playing, he's got a lot of upper frequency tones coming out in the way that he's playing the acoustic guitar, in addition to Ren enhancing those frequencies in the mix. So whenever you're working on mixing, you want to represent like low sounds, boom, 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 like kick drum, bass sounds. You want to leave room in the mix so that the vocals sit really nicely. And then you want to have some like upper frequency things, some rhythmic things, usually some percussive-y things that just give a nice sonic balance to the track with lows, middles, and highs going on. All of the highs really are being taken care of by the way Romain is playing guitar here. There's a lot of in the guitar tone, and that adds a nice little rhythmic texture throughout the whole track if you notice. Hear that tone right there? It's really cool, which contrasts nicely against Ren's guitar. Boop, boop. Ren has a really warm guitar tone when he plays this solo right here. Check it out. Hear that? I love that little bow, bow, that little look back. So cheeky, right? You can really see Ren's sense of humor and playfulness here in this video, can't you? You know, I love that. It's interesting. He's using this Shure SM7B in a lot of the vocal recordings that he does. And that's a really common podcaster mic. It's a dynamic microphone. It's a really warm microphone. And I actually don't have one right now. Got a couple students that have them, and I want to have one for my studio just to play around with. Seeing Ren use them so much, it's making me crave that mic. I actually did just get my first microphone as a free thing that I get to review on this channel, and I get to keep it. It actually sounds pretty good. I'm excited. We've been trying it out at my studio. I'm going to talk about it in an intro to one of my reactions here coming up.
I don't take coffee, I take tea, my dear. Tea, my dear. I'd like my toast done up one side.
All right, so Ren's tone right here. I don't take coffee. I can't demonstrate anything today with this cold. Ugh. But what he's doing right here, he's got a little bit of compression, which is that grit element. All right, let me actually break it down the way I always do with my students. Let's talk about it using my concept I created called the triangle. The top of the triangle, we've got our grit element. This bottom side of the triangle, we've got our brass element. This side of the triangle, we have our wind element. Where is his tone right here in relation to those things? How much grit does he have in a sound? Well, he's not the grittiest that he's ever been. He's got a little bit of that squeeze. Most of the time when we put grit on our voice, it's through a lateral squeeze of the voice. We're like doing this like lateral thing. He's got some of that here, but not so much that he's not that far. He's not like kicking up extra gurgly sounds in his tone, right? So he's a little squeezy, a little edgy, but not super edgy. He's got a little bit of air allowance in the tone, which gives it that kind of warm, lo-fi fuzziness a little to his tone, as opposed to when he gets super brassy. Sometimes he gets really brassy in his singing. He gets brassy in this song a little bit later on too. But so if we're thinking of that triangle, he's got a little bit of the grit, a little bit of the squeeze. He's got a high amount of the windiness in his sound. And he doesn't have a ton of the brass element in his tone active yet. A teeny bit here and there in the phrase, but it's mostly wind and grit. Listen for that in his tone first up.
I don't take coffee, I take tea, my dear.
Wind, grit. Not a lot of brass.
I'd like my toes done up one side. On one side.
And if you notice the way that Romain and Goran are singing, they're singing on my side. They're very straight tone. They're not super brassy, but they're not super windy. What do we call that in singing? We call that a mix. Ba. So there's a little bit of that brass element, a little bit of that wind element inside of the tone. It's a mix of those things. And that's what they're in right now. And by the way, I don't think that they're sitting around thinking, okay, let's synchronize our mixing tone. I think this is something probably that's happening intuitively inside of the ensemble. And the way that they would communicate about this, if they felt that their tones weren't matching the way they wanted, they would probably say something like this. Hey, bro, can you do it a little more like this? It's got to get a little more of this sound in it. You're a little too like this. Like, that's usually how musicians will communicate with each other. They're not going to be like, hey, well, I'm noticing that you have a little too active of a thyroarytenoid muscle in that tone, and I think you need to become more cricothyroid dominant. Okay, let's do that. I guarantee you they're not talking like that. But that is kind of how I talk to my students. Anyway, all right, so back into the song. We've got these nice, clean, tight harmonies, panned left, panned right from Romain and Goran. God, I hope I'm saying their names right, or this is going to be really annoying for you all listening back. So they're panned left, they're panned right. We've got the guitar, Ren's warm guitar. We've got Goran playing bass with cool rhythms, and then we've got Romain handling the skank on the acoustic guitar.
Get it within my accent when I talk. I'm an Englishman in New York. See me walking down Fifth Avenue.
So what Ren is doing right here is way harder than it looks. That little ba 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 that he's playing in the guitar while singing is super hard. It really actually, it's funny that he's doing a Sting cover and that he's doing that because Sting is a bass player and he's also the lead singer. It's weird to be a bass player and a lead singer for the same reason that what Ren is doing is hard right there. Is it's hard to play off the beat stuff, which is very common for a bass player, when you're singing off the beat as well. Singers are usually doing syncopated things inside of the song. Syncopation is when is when there's an accent off the beat. So that's the beat, and I'm putting accents off the beat. So when you play bass, a lot of times bass players are doing those boom, 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 boom. They're doing these accents off the beat. So if you're the singer and you're doing accents off the beat, and then you're playing bass too and doing accents off the beat, or in Ren's case right here, playing guitar off the beat, boom, 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 while you're singing, it's a lot of musical complexity to hold in your head at the same time. So it doesn't sound that hard listening to him do it, but for a musician listening, it's like, oh, damn, that's hard stuff to do. It's really good. I hope that made sense to you non-musicians out there, but it's a thing. Let's listen back to Ren doing this little lick here.
See me walking down Fifth Avenue.
That.
Walking K by my side.
By my side.
I take it with me everywhere that I walk. I'm an Englishman in New York.
Now, listen to the guitar change here into the chorus. What do they do?
Whoa, I'm an alien. I'm a legal alien. I'm an Englishman in New York.
Big change, right? The instrumentation didn't change, but the way they're playing the instruments changed. Did you notice how much fuller and how much more energy came into the accompaniment in this section versus what they were doing before? In the beginning of the song, they were squeezing. There was a lot of overhead left for the song to expand when we got to the chorus. The way they expanded was switching to full-on strumming. Boom, ba, boom, ba, 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 ba. They started to full-out strum, and that opened up the sound. The sound went from being pointy to legato and open and resonating all of those mid-lower frequencies right there, and it just opened things right up. Did you notice that? Listen back for that.
I'm an Englishman in New York. Whoa, I'm an alien.
Hear that?
I'm a legal alien. I'm an Englishman in New York. Whoa, I'm an alien. I'm a legal alien. I'm an Englishman in New York.
I love this part here. Goran and Ren are in unison here. Boo, 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 boo. Ooh, I've got good low notes today with this cold. Ooh. So you notice they're in unison right here. They're playing together. Super cool. And then Romain's keeping the rhythmic stuff going again. Check that out. So Romain's back on the skank, and then Ren and Goran are playing unison together. So they were playing in unison, and then Ren would do a little, and then they go back to playing in unison. And if you notice, by the way, this is the way it works inside of musical ensembles. You're constantly thinking about where you want to put the attention of the listener or of the audience. And great musicians, they don't play over each other. They don't talk over each other. So if this is the melody, ba-da-da-da-da-da, and then there's a little bit of time at the end of the phrase where you're not singing, that's a moment for a musician to put in a little, they'll put in a little bit of their thing. They'll say their thing. They don't say their thing when you're saying your thing, because that would step on your toes. That would be talking over you. If you notice right here, Ren plays a little lick inside of the ba-boo-doo, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. He plays a little lick in there. And what he's doing is he's doing that thing I just was talking about. He's not playing over top of the melody, which is ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba. That's the melody. He's not going to solo over top of that. He waits until the very end of that melodic idea to stick in his little musical thing. Listen for him doing that right here. That's a very common musical thing, and you'll notice it everywhere. I bet you'll notice it 100 times in The Big Push. That.
Manners maketh man, so I say.
How did Ren change his voice there? Why does it sound different? Anybody know? Anybody? He dropped down the octave right there. He's up. He was way up there in the first verse. Now he dropped down the octave to show off that sexy low voice. What do you think sexier? High voice notes or low voice notes? Drop it in the comments. I was getting a little bit of both from y'all.
He's a hero of the day.
Both is the right answer too, by the way.
Manners maketh man, some might say. He's a hero of the day.
So do you see the little embellishments, the little ornamentation that Ren is putting on the melody there? He's changing it up. Oh, I can't sing today. Yeah, but you heard it. So he's doing these little artistic things, just not too much, not too little, just right, just changing it up, putting his own spin on things. Listen for him doing that right there.
Manners maketh man, some might say. He's a hero of the day.
That little thing he does. So good.
Hero of the day.
Hero of the day.
Taste so man, suffer ignorance and smile. Be yourself, no matter what they say.
Notice the humility in this group. Notice how there's not a lot of ego stuff going on here. These are just guys sitting around sharing a song, making music together, enjoying life. Notice how real, authentic, human stuff this is right here.
Takes more than combat to make a man. Takes more than a license to a gun.
This is Ren being his dynamic self. You know, Ren is a master of being interesting. Period. Like, just call it that. Like, he is a master of being interesting for us with his art. And, you know, he'll be down in his low voice. He'll get us used to being down there. And then all of a sudden he jumps up and we're like, whoa, put our phone down, right? You know, like he holds our attention so well. So he switched up into his upper register. He added a lot more air pressure. The tone got brassier. His vocal folds closed. He thickened the tone. He had a little bit of grit on the top. So again, think back to the triangle. Got our grit on top, brass over here, windiness over here. Now, he went from the windy tone, which he started with. Now we're into the brassy tone. There's a lot more bite and thickening and air pressure in his sound. He also turned up the grit. If you notice, he got a little growly on that top, which is like the highest level of grit. When you turn the compression dial all the way up on your voice, that's when you get that growly sound in your voice. Let's listen to him do that a little bit right there.
Takes more than combat to make a man.
Then he does he does that little falsetto yodel flip up high. If you've been following my Chapel Rome videos, you know that I talk about her doing that all the time. It's fun that Ren's doing it here. And if you notice, that little flip up he's doing, I'm wondering if he's spontaneously doing it in the moment or if that's something that came up in rehearsal. Because in the guitar solo transition into the second verse, he does a little burp. He does that on guitar. So my musical mind was wondering, like, did he just notice that he did that on the guitar and then tried to do it on his voice because his subconscious artistic mind did it? You know, I don't know. That's kind of the weird stuff I think about having taught this and done this for so long.
Takes more than combat to make a man. Takes more than a license to a gun.
License to a gun.
Befriend your enemies, confront them when you can.
Notice Notice again, one of the things I mentioned in Bongo Bong was how staccato and tight the changes between syllables in his singing is. Ah, oh, when you go, ah, there's this he's not chewing through the diphthongs. A diphthong is a word like day, day. There's an A sound and an E sound in the word day, and you kind of mush from one to the other. That's a real pain in the butt for singing, and pretty much we try to minimize that as much as possible in every type of singing. But if you notice in reggae and ska, it's very pure vowels. There's not any diphthonging going on at all in the syllables.
A gentleman must walk but never run.
Mad! You hear that growl in his tone right there?
A gentleman must walk but never run. Whoa, I'm an alien.
Now everybody's singing out. Everyone's in their brass tone. Notice that Romain and Goran are more powered here.
I'm the legal alien, I'm an Englishman in New York. Whoa, I'm an alien, I'm a legal alien, I'm an Englishman in New York.
I love how the dog is just chilling out in the shot here. The dog is like, how many more takes are we going to do before I get to go outside? That's so funny. Oh, I used to have a parrot. I used to have birds for a while. I'm not a huge fan of owning birds, but it was something that we wanted to get my daughter when she was young. And I used to have a parrot when I was teaching all the time on my shoulder until they got a little aggressive with some students. Yeah. But anyway, pets are fun when you're making music. Very interesting. The song is now switched into a bit more of a swingy feel than the ska feel. So when we talk about swing is where you're going to take the eighth notes in a song, which is like, if here's the beat for a song, ba 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 ba. Those are eighth notes. We're dividing the beat in half. The quarter note, ba 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 ba. Now, when you make something swingy, you make a long short out of the eighth notes. Ba 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 ba. Right here, Ren went off of the cha 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 cha. We went from the ska feel, which doesn't have swing in it, to this little ba 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 ba. This sort of swinging solo right here. Listen for that. Ba 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 ba. That's swinging. Not swinging is ba 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 ba. Okay? When the ba 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 ba, that's straight eighth notes. Ba 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 ba, that's swinging. Notice he gets a little swingy here. It's a cheeky thing to do. It adds a little smile. It adds a little personality. It adds a little wink to it when you do that. There's some little funny notes in this solo too. There's like some little, let's call them blue notes. When you play jazz, a blue note is like a note that's like not 100% in the scale, but you kind of bend into it. It's like the minor third. You're like, you're just making it a little, you're putting a little bit of that minor into the major or something, you know, borrowing notes from outside of the scale. Ren's doing a little bit of that here. If you notice in this solo, there's some notes that are kind of a little out of the scale. I like that stuff. That adds a little, you know, it's kind of like when you smell perfume, there can be like a little funkiness in the smell sometimes, and that's what makes it so good. It's the same equivalent to that in a musical context. Listen for some of those notes. I'll try to point when I hear them. Right there. Ba. Right there, that note too. There was one in there too. A lot of times with jazz musicians and improvisational musicians, they're trying to push out as far as they can harmonically and get back home at the right time. Like that's one of the fun games you play musically.
Be yourself, no matter what they say.
Notice the tone quality change here. Their voices got warm and sweet.
Be yourself, no matter what they say.
How do they do that? They back off on the air pressure. They let a little more air flow through the tone. They're letting a little more of the wind element into their voices and a little less of the brass element. There's not as much grit in that sound.
Be yourself, no matter what they say.
Now, Ren jumped up the octave into his falsetto.
Be yourself, no matter what they say. Whoa, I'm an alien. I'm a legal alien. I'm an Englishman in New York.
For as gritty as Ren can sing, notice how clean he sounds here. Isn't it cool that he can shapeshift back and forth between that? Sometimes gritty singers can't make their voices clean, too.
Whoa, I'm an alien. I'm a legal alien. I'm an Englishman in New York.
Speaking of an Englishman in New York, when is he coming to New York? When do I get to see him? Now that I'm a renegade, I haven't had the chance to see him yet. Or maybe I need to come over there to the UK with you all and see him over there. That would be fun. I think that Chinchilla is performing, I don't know, in the next few days in LA. But I've got a couple students in LA. I thought, God, wouldn't it be fun to fly out to see them and then get to see Chinchilla? I'm not sure that's going to be in the cards for me, but it was a fun fantasy. But anyway, this was so fun. It really feels like it's time to wrap this up. My cold's starting to kick in here. But in summary, the big thing I feel about this is like, Ren is just such a pro. I mean, the level of maturity and sophistication in this ensemble here, it's not just Ren that's a pro. They're all pros. It's very tasteful. It's very thoughtful. And it takes a lot of self-awareness and a high level of consciousness to get to a place where you can make such selfless, thoughtful music. And I really believe a lot of that came from, at least for Ren, from a lot of the trials and things he's been through in his life. Like, when you go through trials like that, it sheds you of your ego and puts you in a more selfless, humble place. And that's the greatest place to make music from. Because when you're selfless, when you're humble, when you're willing to hear the truth about your art, about your growth, about everything about yourself, that's when you're really able to super accelerate your path to grow and to make great art. It's all about honesty, self-honesty, authenticity. And Ren has been stripped of his ego so much through all of the things he's been through that he's a pure, beautiful conduit for expression. And naturally, when you are like that, you attract other people who are like that as well. And that's why we get so many wonderful musicians orbiting around Ren or have a similar energy to them. So how fun is it that we get to celebrate their art together and attract more musicians to making music like this? Pretty cool, huh? All right, there we go. I hope that wasn't too rough listening through with me with this cold. I had definitely had to stop a few times for some hacking up my lungs, but I made it. This was fun. It was great to have a premiere with you all. So please share this with any renegades you know. Don't forget, I do have a Ren and Friends playlist on my homepage. This is going to go in there as well. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe to stay up to date on my latest videos. Come join the Ren chat, the free Ren and Friends chat I have on my Patreon. So much stuff going on. Talk to you soon. Cheers.